Can't run anymore.
We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order at 6:30. We do a roll call, please.
Christian.
Here.
Halliday. Whittington.
Here.
Jeske.
Here.
Oster.
Here.
Souter.
Here.
Bowles.
Here.
Thank you. If you would, please join me in the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Whoa, that's crazy. Like equipment malfunction all over the place. Almost had Kelly with the door, looking at the table. All right, looking for a motion and support to approve the agenda.
I'll make that motion. I'll support.
Okay, we have a motion and a support. That is as presented. All those in favor with the raised right hand? Aye. Aye. That 4-2.
5-1.
Five-one.
5-1.
That was for the agenda, approve the agenda, correct?
Correct.
So if I wanted to make an adjustment to the agenda, am I too late now, or did I guess I was waiting
You
for the
can-
consent agenda part.
You can vote to amend it. If you wanted to amend it, I guess it's my understanding it should have been done at the approval of the agenda. You can still make the amendment, or if you want to pull something off, we can discuss that.
Well, I would like to, at one minimum, look at amending it from taking our closed session to after our reports. And the reason I'm asking for that is for the purposes of, if we're gonna talk, evaluation and other updates with Ben, I'd like to do that before I approve the salary contract.
Okay. So,
And also there was, desire to make a motion to remove item D from the consent agenda to its own individual action item.
so my understanding is that we can move D from consent to an action item. We can do that. If we want to make a change to where closed session is on the agenda, then we will need a vote for that. Am I understanding that correct?
Yes. So since we've already adopted the agenda, we would need a motion, a second, and then we would need a majority members serving. So we need a 5 in affirmative to pass it.
To make an adjustment
Because it's a
for,
2/3 majority for an amendment on an agenda that's already been accepted. Pulling the consent items, you can do it at any time, no second, no vote, just at your will.
okay.
Just a quick question, and if we had questions on changing this, can't we address that before we're here too? Or no? I thought that we could, if we had questions, talk and ask if we could remove something to discuss. Is that not accurate?
Are you talking
Any-
changing the agenda before the
Any
meeting?
formal
Yeah.
discussion has to take place at the table.
Okay. I thought for some reason.
I think OMA, it has to be available to the public for a certain amount of time before the meeting, and then no changes can be made
Okay.
within that time.
The meeting's published on
Outside of-
Fridays
yeah.
at the very end of the day before I leave, and once it's made public, then the only thing changes happen here.
Okay. So if we got it Thursday and thought that something should be changed, we could address
Right,
that
you would
before
reach out to
Friday.
Brian on Thursday and ask for that at that time. That's why I hold
So that
published
does
till
get
Friday,
away.
to give you guys 24 hours to make any requests.
Okay, so do we have a motion and a support for changing the location of the closed session?
Mark-
I'll
Sounds
make
like
the
Mark's
motion.
got the motion.
I'll second.
Alright. Souter motion, supported by Oster to move closed session to in front of the action items.
Yes.
Correct, okay. Alright, can we do a roll call on that one, please?
Yeah, Christian?
Sure.
Yes.
Yes. Jeske?
No.
Whittington?
Yes.
Bowles?
Yes.
Oster,
Yes.
Souter.
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes 5-1. So, closed session will move up to right before action items. And then we are going to move consent agenda item D, and that will become action item I. Okay. So with those changes in mind, I'm looking for a motion and a support to approve the amended consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Souter, supported by Oster. All those in favor with the raise right hand, aye? Aye? Is that 6-0?
Yes.
Thank you. Can't hear it that side very good.
Thinking.
Sorry.
Yes.
That brings us to number 4, student and staff recognition.
All right, thanks, big thank you. It's been another big summer. Big thanks to DM Burr, all their staff, George, Doug, all the secretaries who've been displaced, our teachers, TAs, and the admins, especially the admins who've been displaced. This is another summer of significant upheaval and construction. By the end of this week, we should be all put back together, which is super exciting. So we're wrapping up the ESSER work, but everyone's been great, and we are still on target. So thank you to everybody for the flexibility and all their hard work. I have been notified, Alicia, by a few of your custodians that they really appreciated when the admin group came and we had like 15 people help, empty classrooms in like 8 hours. They reminded me that would be equally appreciated if you were to show up and help refill. So when we're ready, we may do that. They're all full here, so we're going to go here. But they may need a little extra help at Collins. So once we're ready for that, I'll pass the word. Also, a thank you to Brian and Chauncey. We received in the mail from MASB. Brian received a Certified Board Member Award for having completed course requirements for the Certified Board Member CBA program. So congrats, Brian. Thank you for all you're doing. And you get another one, a Certificate of Achievement. The Level 2 Award of Merit is awarded upon completion of certification Level 1 and a minimum of 45 ed credits. And even though he's not here, I'm going to read the same for Chauncey. Chauncey gets the Certificate of Achievement, again, for completing the course requirements for a Certified Board Member CBA program, and also the Certificate of Achievement for the Level 2 Award of Merit, completing certifications for Level 1, and then a minimum of the 45 education credits. So congrats to you both.
Thank you.
Quick question, Brian. We approved the amended agenda. We approved the consent agenda as it's amended.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep, it was motioned and supported as amended. All right, is that it for student and staff recognition?
Yes, it is.
All right. Do we have any public comments tonight? We don't have any little slips of paper. Open up the floor to. Hearing none, we'll move along to reports. Superintendent.
All right. Today, Leanne and I participated in a regional superintendent's meeting virtually with lobbyist David Ladd from Kelly Cawthorn. David Ladd is an attorney. He is the chief lobbyist for many school districts throughout the state of Michigan. David gave us an update on the budget status. We all discussed from our chairs, whether you're superintendent or whether you're business manager, we all were clamoring for the need for a fall supplemental budget to add money to the per pupil budget and to increase the MIPSERS, that is the retirement rate reduction, to better protect districts from the high cost of retirement and retirement health care. David Ladd, our lobbyist, was clear there is plenty of money sitting in Lansing to add additional funds to the per pupil and create additional relief with the retirement cap. And he said it's really hard to fathom why in this year's budget, charter schools received an increase of $57 million in per pupil funding, and public schools received $0. So obviously, we are all, as school district leaders and finance managers, we are working with our groups and our lobbyists to put pressure on legislators as they come back. The good news is the money's there. And what we're hearing is there is some traction for and support for passing a retirement rate adjustment, which would be a bigger one than they did. What they did was took a small bite out of a very big apple. They had more work to do. So there is some motivation for that. We're hearing there also may be some additional per pupil, and since we got 0, anything would be better than nothing. So there's, we're hearing anything as low as $25, $50 per pupil. It's not a lot, but right now it's 0. So we will see what the legislators have a stomach for when they come back. But we are continuing our messaging daily and weekly. Fall athletics kicked off today. We've had, of course, unofficial, summer workouts and such, but we're up and running officially. Could not ask for a better weather week, although I did see some sweaty football players after the first day, and I'm sure for them it was still hot, but pretty lucky actually, because we're not as hot as it could be. Super excited, the Collins electronic sign has been installed. It was installed on time. The company did a great job. They have sent us the software and the training videos. Big thanks to Doug and Christy Myers and Alicia and Cheryl for kind of diving right in and learning how to make some updates to the sign and customize it. It is pretty slick. You could actually show a movie on it. Not that we'll do that because we'll cause wrecks on 55. So we will stick with our scrolling still pictures. But thank you all for jumping in and getting that thing updated. And big thanks to Christy Myers and Potomac Preschool for writing the grant that completely paid for the $38,000 sign. Summer construction update. As of today, all the classrooms in this building have been tiled and are completed and waxed. Our custodians have replaced the furniture in all the rooms. In addition, if you haven't seen it while you're here tonight, go down to the library. Gone is the That 70s show carpet, and you will enjoy what you see. The crew did a beautiful job on the resilient carpet flooring that went in there. It's a 6-foot roll, adhesive. They seamed it together beautifully. It's just changes the whole space. At Collins, all of the classroom tile installation finished literally like a half hour ago. They were tiling 2 more rooms today and got it done. They are now, the install crew, going to spend the next couple days putting the thresholds in every doorway and doing cove base all the way around the classrooms and all the way up and down the halls. Once the rooms are waxed and the floors are dry, custodians will be putting furniture back in all the rooms. Some of the rooms are done, and so like in the upper L, the rooms are done. Some furniture is back in some of them. And so we're really talking about the lower elementary where those rooms still need to be waxed. So, but they're making great progress and excited to see that. The only remaining thing here is just a couple little areas, a couple offices that will be tiled that were kind of add-ons, and we have some leftover tile, and so we're gonna, if you think about the main office here, how the desk is kind of shaped, kind of like this board desk, but in reverse. We're going to remove the carpet that's in front of it where the general public comes in, and that'll be tiled. But behind the desk, it will remain carpet. So out there is where, sometimes if we have a sick child or someone throws up, or, it's just dirty feet from coming in with snow and salt. So that'll be a lot easier to keep clean. So excited about that. Speaking of updates and good news, we received word that the long-awaited new cafeteria furniture will be delivered August 20. Maintenance staff, cafeteria staff will be working hard to remove the old tables and install a combination of folding rectangular tables, booths, and high tops, like pub-style seating. We will have tables along one wall that will have charging ports for Chromebooks, and it'll be pretty slick. So really excited. I know when I looked at the layout and the design. Lacey and the install guys, or the design guys did a nice job, so looking forward to getting that in. And last but not least, want to give a big thank you to Mr. Curtis, who today started the process of carving the first of 3 Bobcat features or images onto the 3 trees that we cut and left prepped for his handiwork. I know I speak for everyone to say we're all excited to see that project completed. He emailed me tonight, right before the board meeting, said he expects to have the one out front done Wednesday, and then he's gonna move to the one by the stadium, and then at last but not least, he's gonna figure out what to do on the tall one that's right in front of the junior-senior high entrance. So there's one there about 12 feet tall. And that's where the tree company left it. It's not necessarily gonna be that tall. We might have to take some more feet off it, but he's at a loss for what to put there. He's like, I've got my ideas in my head, and I know what I'm doing on these 2. He said, Mr. Williams, what do you want to see on the third? I said, you're asking the wrong guy. I do not have a creative bone in my body, but I said, I will throw it out to staff, I'll throw it out to the art teacher, we'll brainstorm. And we were thinking about, even things like HL block letters, HLCS, or HL and Apocryne, or who knows. So I think we're gonna brainstorm with Mr. Burtis to see what ideas make sense based on the size of that tree. And then he'll get going on that one after he finishes the other 2. So lots of good stuff going on. So that is the update.
Great. Finance report.
Budget highlights for July, well, we're in the first month of the new school year, so I don't have any, highlights for that, as of yet. I did wanna let you know that we are closing out our fiscal, year for 2024, and also working towards our audit, which is gonna be at the end of this month.
Right, great. Any questions on the finance report? Okay, thank you. All right, now with the amended agenda, that will take us to looking for a motion and support to move into closed session for the purpose of superintendent evaluation under the Open Meetings Act, Section 8A.
I'll make that motion.
I'll support it. Will you do a roll call vote, please?
Christian,
Yes.
Oster,
Yes.
Halliday, Bowles,
Yes.
Whittington,
Yes.
Jeske.
Yes.
Souter.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. We will be back.
They're done at 7:30.
We're back in session at 8:04. Should we do the motion to approve the closed session minutes now, or keep it where it's at? Should we go
We'll
to
keep it where it's at.
Okay, sounds good. We're gonna get into action items then. Action item A, motion to approve the 2024-2025 student handbooks.
Can we have some discussion?
We'll need a motion and support.
Oh, can I have a motion for discussion?
It's just motion in general.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll make the motion.
I'll Okay.
Support.
Motion by Christian, supported by Whittington. Discussion.
Just a question, I guess, more so, I went to check, cause I saw there was some there was a dress code portion that was highlighted for changing. And so I went to compare it to the old one, just to see what had changed, cause I didn't see the old. And on the website, it's already updated to the 24-25. So just kind of a question on that, cause as it reads now, it lists like what has to be covered. It says the belly button and the breasts have to be covered, so does this mean girls can now wear high-rise pants with essentially a extreme crop top, basically a sports bra, and that's within dress code now?
I will answer the update on the website question. I have Jeff and Alicia here who will answer the kind of the brainchild behind the edits. We have tied our Google Docs for the editable handbook to the website, so that if we make a change, it
It's
automatically.
still highlighted on the website, I saw that.
And so it populates there, and then, as handbooks, as the future updates, again, it makes it expeditious to do that. So that's why you're seeing in draft form with the highlights, and then once board approved, the highlights come off.
Right, I was
So-
just looking so I could compare
Yeah.
what the old was,
Yep.
and I couldn't do that, so
Yep.
I was kinda curious, and is that what now we're allowing within dress code?
Yep, so, our EdCon conference at Traverse City, one of the breakout sessions that I went to was specifically regarding like handbooks and some of the hot button, frankly, like court challenges and things like that that were happening, and the dress code was a big one. And so one of the proposed changes is what you see. If we're gonna have integrity and fidelity with our practices, we have to know specifically what we're looking for. So it's so common in dress at this point, where even a shirt that's not intended to be a midriff shirt, there is a student moves away or whatever, and you're seeing that lower portion of whether it's the lower back or the stomach. And so when we talk about this enforcement piece, the belly button is just a very easy piece to say, like, you can hold us accountable for that. If the belly button is exposed, like, hey, you gotta change, you have to put on the shirt, you have to do whatever, as opposed to if we're gonna get to legislate like any exposure of the midriff, I do have to be honest, it's gonna be every female student basically every day. And I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I mean we literally are when we talk about the fashion that we're seeing. And so that was not just a Houghton Lake decision, that was actually, doing the legwork at EdCon and then reaching out to some other principals. What is your language? How are you enforcing this? And they said the belly button is just not, like, it's not debatable. You see that belly button, you know that shirt is definitely not the tasteful manner, and I think that makes it a lot more comfortable, if we're being really honest, for two male administrators to be able to enforce a dress code policy that does tend to skew towards enforcement for females. And so that's just speaking very candidly. We also used the breast thing because, again, cleavage is another one of those interpretive areas, because we're supposed to enforce our dress code in all venues, and so we want to talk about homecoming and prom and what does that mean. And so that makes then, you guys will all, taking pictures of your kids at their homecoming and prom. And so we start to get into some areas where enforcement becomes pretty challenging. And so we made the change to the language to where those are really not negotiable and not debatable. The enforcement is easy, and we think it creates clean, tasteful dress within the school. So that's why we went with that language specifically. I think when you look at it, I said to Mr. Watson, I said, do you think that you feel like this weakens the dress code? He was no, he goes, I certainly think we enforce the dress code more because it's so prevalent now. Or you're able, if you have two students walking down the hallway, and one has like a strip of skin because she lifted up her arm picking up a book, and another belly button is exposed, like there's a very real difference between those two things, and we're now able to just enforce that with some integrity. That was that language change.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
But the answer as far as essentially wearing a sports bra as a shirt now would pass dress
so
code.
I have not seen a sports bra that would cover past the belly button.
Right, but if they're
covering the
wearing
midriff.
pants high enough and the belly button's covered.
and-
That's my concern, I guess, is that we're looking
For
at
sure.
high-rise pants now
For
with
sure.
shorter shirts.
Yeah, so and I do have to be honest, like I'll be honest on that. If the dress code does not specifically say no sports bras, if we have seen girls wearing sports bras, that's probably the number one thing that last year we had to deal with our dress code. Is the sports bra is just a thing where our language is like, come on, like for real, go. And so that one is the one that every now and again tries to get slipped past us, and it's just not. Usually with the sports bra, you see the shirt over, like there's this shirt over.
There's some shirts now that are
Yeah, I
basically
know
the
what you're
same.
saying, I'm like trying to
That's
think
my
how much
concern.
skin-
Exactly.
Wear
That
high-rise
is-
pants
It's
and,
not even necessarily just a sports bra, like they make
What's it?
shirts
Yes.
now that can just be
So-
underneath and.
So that's my concern
So
with
to
the
answer-
language.
3 inches or
To
something.
Yes.
answer you on that particular question, yes, you may see a shirt and it's zipped and there's a sports bra and it looks like a compression top or it looks like whatever.
Right.
So I'm certainly not gonna like, hey, how do you do, like, so yes, theoretically, they could get away with that. If I have to investigate if under that shirt is violating, then that shirt is doing what it needs to be doing, I guess, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Jeff, I'm wondering if this language covers that, because it says appropriate attire covers the student's breast, buttocks, belly button, and does not display any remnants of the student's undergarments, including bras
Right.
and underwear. So,
But like Ashley was saying, there's shirts now that they would wear over that are essentially
And
the
if
same.
it's just past the belly button, they could potentially have 3
4
inches,
inches,
4
depending on
inches
how tall.
of stomach
So-
Yeah.
showing.
So this is the issue that we're running into. So sports bras are, so many of them now, as they're produced, like they're worn in like competition. They look like a piece of attire that people are just going to wear in public. So like we do have this challenge of when they're wearing something over top of it, of like questioning, is that a bra or a shirt, because it is the same material as a compression top. And so then it dives into this gray area of, we have many boys who wear athletic shorts and a Nike compression gear to class, and that sports bra is the same exact material, the same exact thing, and they have another shirt over top of it, and it's zipped up to here, and then you see the sports bra piece. And so again, that's where I go to say, if we have to investigate, like, hey, take the over shirt off and show me, is that a full shirt or is that a sports bra, then I think our argument has been the over shirt is doing its job to the letter of the dress code.
Yeah, my
And so-
concern was more the mid-dress
So I think take the
portion.
sports bra out of it. Think of like a baby tee, is I
Yes.
think where she's
Yes.
going with the
Yeah.
sports bra is the confusion there.
I'm sorry, I know
Emma's
it's boys,
got
so I'm
these
not up on
stupid
the-
shirts and I get them too.
And my answer on this
they're
one
very
is
short,
when
it's
it
just a
comes to
t-shirt,
the
you know?
language on breast, it used to be cleavage was the language, now it's breast. Like, the best answer I have for that is when you know, you know. Like, when you walk down the hall, you're like, no, like, maybe otherwise I'm gonna start like, okay, if this many inches of cleavage is showing, and then that is going to put, frankly, me in an untenable position, which I'm, at that point, going to be like, well, I'm out. Like, I'm not gonna lose my job over this.
But
So-
I'm more concerned about, because like the midriff language,
Yeah,
and I get
for
what you're
sure.
saying, but there's a big difference in, oh, I saw some skin when she raised her arms, and there's constantly 3-4
The-
inches showing.
and the I will be very transparent. Almost 100% of the reason for the change in language is the midriff problem, because we were losing it,
Trying to
and
find
it was
different
because
verbiage.
and we think that the belly button clarifies what we're looking to enforce. So I will say, if you come in, yep, every now and again you're going to see, that much of something right here, but if it's not this egregious thing.
If it is, I guess if it is past their belly button, but they are still showing a lot of skin, are you able to say like that's not appropriate, got something
One
on?
more time.
If it is past their belly button, but they are still showing a lot of
A lot.
skin,
Yep.
are you able to say, put something on that's inappropriate?
For sure. So, especially in that case, because a lot of times in that particular case, if you're seeing a lot of midriff, no belly button, then the pants are inappropriate. And so, like, we kind of went through and we really identified, and we think a simplification of the language is the only way we're going to be able to enforce this. And a lot of the complaints that you're hearing societally about dress codes is lack of enforcement and things like that. And I think my argument back is, the societal dress standards at this point are very different, and so we have to make it simple so that we can go back and we can enforce just what is a standard, acceptable, and tasteful dress code within the school. And so I honestly think that the belly button language is the game changer for us, because that was the one last year that was driving me crazy. Very rarely do you have to address anybody with the cleavage situation. It does happen, but it's quite rare. Another one that we did address, and I don't remember specifically the language, but you see the boys in the shirts that are ripped down the side. That was addressed. I don't specifically remember where in that, but that was a big one for Chad and I. And it's primarily because we feel like the need for balance, right? Like, because the dress code is primarily something that ends up in, if a male student is dress coded, it's almost always for inappropriate language or something on their shirt. It's not, they expose something usually. Yeah.
Okay, and then my other question was on the cell phone policy. As it reads right now, students are allowed before school, after school, lunch, and passing time. I remember last year there was a change, I think just through like a weekly update, to where it was only before, after, and lunch, not at passing time.
Yeah.
Phones had to be in the lockers, or in the backpack, but then the backpacks had to be in the lockers. So however that all worked out, because that doesn't seem like it changed. Was that just kind of like a
So passing
something
time,
that changed?
so again, going through with passing time, it was more, you have to keep your integrity with the students. And when 500 students flood into the hallway, we found that enforcing cell phone policy in that hallway, it'd be all hands on deck, and tens of thousands of violations, because they're just all in the hallway, and so I think it took away a little bit of teeth. If I'm speaking candidly, our policy, we feel good about our policy if you like that policy. I personally love the idea of a no cell phone policy. I just think that comes in with like no cell phones at all, right? I just think that requires full district buy-in at every level from all voices, and recognizing the pushback that's going to come on that, the very loud, very angry pushback that's going to come on that, and everybody being ready for that fight. We're open to it, because cell phones present like a world of problems. It's not just cell phones, it's a technology issue, because there are lots of districts addressing cell phones in various ways. Some of them are just saying leave them at home. Some of them are saying we better not see it. Others are buying devices to store those throughout the day. And I'm on a couple subreddits regarding this, and frankly, you find you either go full no cell phone policy, and again it's all buying and the initial blow surviving that, or you put in the policy very similar to the one that we have, where you allow it during certain times, and then you have to trust the enforcement. And so our plan at this point is to, we like the policy that we have with enforcement as an option. And so we need to be better about enforcement in some cases, for sure. And so, but as far as I just feel like if we're going to go full no cell phone, then we also need to talk about a transition back to books and worksheets as opposed to Chromebooks. And then we also need to figure out how we're going to address, sent a bunch of text messages on this today, a couple Facebook posts. So we need to talk about how we're going to address all of those things, because if I can do this, our students definitely are able to. And so it's not to, it's not to deflect. It can't be curing the symptom. We have to cure the disease if we're going to do it. And the disease is the technology. Cell phone's just a symptom at this point. So I'm a company guy. I can get behind everything as long as everybody's swimming in the right direction, and truly having our heads wrapped around what that is going to be if you make a big jump into a technology-free environment.
So that's why I had sent that information. I sent it to Brian and Ben, and I think they sent that to all of you as well. Yonder Pouches is, Jeff, I know I've kind of mentioned it to you over a year ago, I think, and I've tracked with that over the last year and several months. And more schools are getting behind a system like that. So for those that aren't familiar, it's like a magnetically sealed pouch. Students were issued, in the schools that have used them, students are issued one similar to being issued a Chromebook. They come in the front door, their phone goes in it for the day. It is unsealed as they leave. So what I like about that particular approach is no office staff or teachers are responsible for anybody's devices. We don't have to put them somewhere where they've got to be supervised or whatever. The students are never out of possession of them. acts as like a Faraday bag, so even if it's not turned off or silenced, you're not gonna have, notifications going off and distracting the learning environment. The statistics from the schools that have implemented are pretty amazing. And that's all. I don't know if you guys have looked through the information. It's a lot. I know that it is. I didn't bring numbers with me, Jeff. I can send you that information if you're
Good, and
interested.
I would gladly take that information, because, so we did talk about, I wanna say this was like.
It was
probably-
over a year ago,
Yeah,
I'm
for
sure,
sure.
yeah.
And so when you brought it up, I don't know if you saw that email exchange, I was all in.
I probably do,
Because,
yeah.
I frankly think that,
Yes.
cell phones.
Well, and you
are-
mentioned the pushback, and these schools,
Yep.
all of them, hey, we had pushback from students for sure. I mean, I'm sorry, if you interview students to ask if they want their cell phones taken, the answer is going to be no. But I'm talking academic improvement, behavior improvement, social engagement, and just like the buy-in to the school, and all of that has been remarkably improved in these districts that have used these. Do I think that you'd have to go that way? Could you possibly not spend the money to do that and just say no cell phones? Yeah, my question is, can it be enforced? Because I've got kids in this building. I don't know how does it, the elementary and things, but I know here there are plenty of teachers that either every day or some days, well, you're done with your work, so I don't mind that you're on your phone. And that's happening a lot, and I'm hearing it from my kids that are in the building. So it's not like, oh, sometimes some teachers. The social media bullying that continues to be a thing. If you go on Instagram, you can find at least 4 different HLHS whatever pages. There's a shoe page, there's a bad parking, there's an eating, there's a sleeping, where they're taking pictures of kids. The shoes, pictures are underneath the bathroom stall of people's shoes. And then bashing, oh, those are cheap, poor Walmart shoes, or who's got drip, or, all number of things where students should be able to be in this building and feel safe from that kind of stuff. Somebody shouldn't be taking pictures of them in the bathroom. I mean,
For sure.
quite
And
frankly.
a couple-
And
so-
fights that have broken out that get recorded on somebody's cell phone, all those things that could be avoided.
And so that was a couple of years ago, the Instagram HLHS, whatever it was, that was a big one, and we've, cause we've had to
Because I
send.
know I contacted you, and you, I know, reached out to Instagram on some
We've
of
had
that.
Mike contact Instagram directly, I mean, we were taking those things down left and right, and again, the no cell phone policy or no technology sounds fantastic to me, honestly, from an ease of management. The Yonder Bag thing, when we were talking about it, so I would love the data just because right now, talking to administrators where it's being implemented, it is just a new headache. So it's, for our building, it would be about, we did quite a bit, Chad and I did quite a bit of research into that. And so the only positive stats that we're really finding right now are from Yonder, in some of their contracted schools, because when we talked about this at EdCon, Yonder Bag's being brought up, and then again, the subreddits that I'm on, some of the teacher subreddits and public school subreddits and principal subreddits, the kids, within weeks figured out, so one, to meet the threshold for the Honor Bag, you just bring in your, you upgrade your phone every 2 years, you bring in your old phone, you shove it in there, and then you're good, and you have your other one actively out. Now, the counterpoint to that is, okay, but if you put your phone in your Honor Bag and I see it with your phone, like now we have big problems, which I can get behind that, except for then the cost to replace the Honor Bag. It's just like everything else, we give kids Chromebooks, we replace dozens of Chromebooks every year because of damage these Yonder Bags end up missing. And then we can say that we're gonna charge the kid, but aside from withholding graduation from them, and not their diploma, but just graduation, sometimes getting compensation for that loss and damage items is quite difficult. And so it ends up accruing a cost, and it does not, I was really on the Yonder Bag and vape detector train until I started talking to other administrators who had those things. And just I can't find, I have not yet found the person who's like, yes, it was great, it helped my school. And I don't think I try not to speak to people who are just negative, like who have a problem for every solution or whatever. But schools who have done this they didn't love it, and now they're like, now we've got tens of thousands of dollars of this equipment and it's not doing what it intended. And so, again, I go through and say, I am on the same page when it comes to the cell phone epidemic that is currently going on. From a standpoint of I live happily tomorrow walking into a technology-free zone. I just don't think that there's a middle ground on that. It's either all or nothing on that because they're gonna find a workaround.
Well, and I mean, I think your point though too, if they,
I just, real quick, I just
Sure.
want to interject. Let's make sure we're still discussing handbook and not
Yes, phone
enforcement of
policy.
the policy.
For sure, and I agree on
Okay.
that.
So, let's
so,
keep it.
I guess my thing is, I'm not sold that, oh, hey, we have to go spend more money. If there's something else that can work in that policy, no cell phones, the first time we see it, it's, if your parents have to get it, whatever, I think that's worth a shot.
Yeah. And I really think with the policy that we have in place right now, I think the things that Chad and I can do organically pretty immediately that do require some support is aggressive enforcement and aggressive outcomes, right? So right now it's, you take your cell phone, you pick it up at the end of the day. Second time your parent comes in and picks up your cell phone. The third time you can't have your cell phone on campus. Okay, you can't have your cell phone on campus, you didn't care enough to not pull it out in class the first time or the second time, so now you can't have it on campus. So that third time, are we good with, we're popping you, you're out for days of lost instruction, and that's been the ethical piece that we're kind of struggling with because those suspensions aren't gonna hold up. So you take a student who has an IEP for any disability and you suspend them for 3 days because they brought their cell phone, and then 3 days turns into 6 days, turns into 9 days, you get to 10 days, and you say, were you withholding those services from that child because they brought their cell phone to school? When I say yes, the state says, okay, here's your corrective action plan. By the way, we're withholding some of your special ed funding until you get this rectified. So it really does have to be we just have to be prepared for the fight that we're gonna fight, and I'm all for it because again, I think I've talked to most of you about my cell phone policy with my kids. My 14-year-old just got his first cell phone policy, and he hates me right now. He hates his life. He almost wishes he didn't get the cell phone because I don't like what it does to kids. But I'm also not silly enough to not understand the impact that it just has generally in society now. And so my only pushback is ever going to be on middle ground issues where they're going to have a policy where the cell phone, we can all agree, that in instructional time, these things need to be gone. Chad and I need to do a better job with our staff saying hey, this is an enforcement, it's not negotiable. You have control over your classroom to a certain extent. When there's 10 minutes of open time left, you don't get to give the kids permission and you still need to enforcement. I can fall on the sword and say I 100% agree with that, and I have to do a better job as a principal of holding those standards. Fine with that. But if it's going to be the next step of, well, maybe if we do this to curtail it. They're smarter than us when it comes to technology. They kick our butt every day when it comes to this technology. I'm not ashamed to say it. There's 500 of them, there's 50 of us, and they're living in this since they were born. They figure out ways to navigate that. There's TikToks that show how they do it, and so anytime we do something like that, it's reactive and not proactive. So the proactive piece is we go biblical one direction or the other, or we continue with proper enforcement of the policy that we have. And like I said, we're good with any of it.
Well, the information Jen sent was good. So I read a few articles, and it really was the initial bomb of, hey, no cell phones, right? So that was, like you say, once we get through that, it kind of eases through. I happened to meet a teacher from downstate on the water a couple weekends ago, and his the way he takes attendance is when the cell phone gets dropped into the basket.
Mm-hmm. 'Cause, 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 'cause
you
I
know.
think that's what he was saying, they just bring in an old phone then.
Well, they could, but if they get busted with the new one,
It's a lot
you'd
easier
be
to see
like,
one person on the phone.
Yeah, and then again,
It
like,
stands out, but-
so there's a lot of those scenarios that, yep, in isolation, it's great. When Jen and I first had the conversation about yonder bags, I legitimately, that night, I went home and like, I wanted it to work. Like, I wanted yonder bags to be the solution. And so, I'm sure that there's, a success story here, a success story there. But not just yonder bags, there's other brands of them and stuff like that. When it was talked about as, so it's funny that we are talking about dress code and cell phones here because the EdCon thing that I went to, it was the hot topics in education, right? And it's funny because I texted Ben during that session, like, you're not gonna believe the things that we're talking about. Like, it is exactly what we're dealing with here at home, like, it's the same thing. And the yonder bag thing, like, I don't wanna say I got laughed out of the room, but it was just like, yup, it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing to me, to drive the adults in your school crazy because it doesn't stop the problem, but it does give them another thing to do with it. And so, or it kicks the problem, right? So we'll get the phones out, alright, and then YouTube cannot be used on Chromebooks even if it's for a good source, which then is a huge problem because the curriculums that we've just bought, they're instructional videos, the links are through YouTube. So when you go to try and get the instructional videos that we just bought through all these curriculums, it's on YouTube, so you can't block YouTube from the kids.
So does the teacher show the video to the entire class up on the board rather than looking at it individually
Correct,
in their
which,
Chromebooks?
if we're gonna do that, we don't need Chromebooks.
Sure.
We don't
You
need
can use
one.
this for your schoolwork when you take
So
it
that's,
home.
and that's what I mean, like,
Yeah.
I can get behind
If
those
if
two
I'm right,
worksheets.
and Jeff, you're probably more in tune with this, it's been a while since I've walked in your shoes doing the enforcement. There's basically 4 ways you can threaten, bully, or otherwise be mischievous with a piece of tech throughout your day. One is your phone.
Yep.
One is your watch. One is your Chromebook. One is your desktop. All of, we have 2 of those 4 school issued. So you can open up a chat with your desktop or your Chromebook. You can bully or harass, send ugly messages. Do the things that we're worried about the cell phone helping manifest without a cell phone. And so then it becomes a question of if the curriculum is online, if we're giving devices to kids to get them ready for online high stakes assessments, how do we live in, it's a weird world to imagine how do you live in a tech-free world where we're back to worksheets and that environment with textbooks.
Yep.
The initial investment would be heavy because we'd be buying a ton of textbooks and discarding a ton of Chromebooks. But I'm not sure, maybe I'm missing something. There might be a 5th or a 6th like device or category or I don't know. But there's probably right now those 4, the
Yep.
main 4, right?
Like
I would
the
agree.
Apple Watch, a lot of the articles that I shared, they would put Apple Watches as well, or whatever,
Yep.
it's not Apple, in those pouches along with their phone. And as far as what they can access on the Chromebook, I think that's a lot more within the school's control. Like, for example, YouTube. I think it's nuts that YouTube, by and large, is available on Chromebooks, because students will watch all kinds of things during classes and otherwise on YouTube that's not class related. So, do you say,
Except
okay,
for-
then the
so
teacher
do you-
shows the video instead of individual students? And I get it, there's no perfect solution to any of this, right? You're not going to be like, there, we completely eradicated the problem, yay us, but can you make a marked improvement? And that's, I guess, what I'm looking for. Is there something we can do to make a marked improvement in the quality of their educational time, the behavioral issues, the bullying and things like that? As far as I know, the Chromebooks, besides maybe a few that have kind of bypassed things, aren't gonna access Facebook and TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat, but their phones do. They're not gonna go around probably taking pictures with their Chromebook underneath bathroom stalls to post online. So I think we look at what can we control and work on that rather than, well, if we can't make a perfect solution, then I guess we just stay with what we've got.
And
We're drifting again, let's bring it back in.
my concern here is policy, as far as if we're voting to accept the student handbook as it's written here, with the policy of the cell phones being accessible throughout the day except for during class time. That's where I am.
Then let's just look at the policy and not problem solve how we can fix
Sure.
it at this point.
I'd like to see that policy, I guess, revisited a little to see if there's some things that we can come up with.
Okay. Any other discussion from the board on the 24-25 handbooks? Hearing none, let's do a roll call vote.
Christian,
Yes.
Souter,
Yes.
Jeske,
Yes.
Whittington,
Yes.
Bowles,
Yes.
Halliday, Oster,
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Looking for a motion and support to approve the amended superintendent contract in the amount of $130,000.
I'll make the motion. I'll support.
Motion by Christian, supported by Whittington. Any discussion from the board on this one? Hearing none, let's do a roll call vote.
Oster,
Yes.
Bowles,
Yes.
Jeske,
Yes.
Halliday, Whittington,
Yes.
Souter,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Thank you, motion carries 6-0. Looking for a motion and support to approve the NWEA renewal for the 24-25 school year in the amount of $12,375.
I'll make that motion.
I'll support.
Motion by Christian, supported by Oster. Any discussion on this one? Hearing none, let's do a roll call vote.
Whittington,
Yes.
Bowles,
Yes.
Oster,
Yes.
Halliday, Christian,
Yes.
Souter,
Yes.
Jeske,
Yes. Thank you, motion carries 6-0. Looking for a motion and the support to approve the renewal of the Eureka Math curriculum for Collins in the amount of $17,673.54 from the general fund.
I'll make the motion.
Support.
Motion by Sauter, support by Bowles. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's do a roll call vote, please.
Souter,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Whittington,
Yes.
Jeske,
Yes.
Halliday, Bowles,
Yes.
Oster,
Yes.
Thank you, motion carries 6-0. Action item E, looking for motion and support to approve renewal of Imagine Learning Edgenuity invoice for the 24-25 school year in the amount of $14,400 out of at-risk.
Make the motion.
I'll support it. Any discussion? Hearing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Whittington,
Yes.
Souter,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Jeske,
Yes.
Bowles,
Yes.
Oster,
Yes.
Halliday,
Thank you, motion carries 6-0. Action item F, looking for motion to support to approve Bridges of Northern Michigan 24-25 agreement in the amount of $40,000 even out of mental health and wellness grant funds.
I'll make that motion. Support.
Motion by Christian, support by Whittington. Any discussion on this one?
Is the $130 the going rate in general? Then do you know the answer
For
to
the
that?
hourly counseling,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And then they have, other rates, like a full psychological assessment is like $9.75. There's other things, but the general rate is like.
Right.
Okay, anything else? Hearing none, can we do a roll call vote, please?
Oster,
Yes.
Halliday, Bowles,
Yes.
Jeske,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Whittington,
Yes.
Souter,
Yes.
Okay, thank you, motion carries 6-0. Action item G, looking for a motion and a support to accept the Holland Bus Company quote for bus cameras in the amount of $6,973 out of the general fund.
I'll support.
Looking for a motion first.
Oh,
I'll
sorry.
give you the motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll give you the motion, I'll support it.
Sounds good, second.
Any discussion on this one? Hearing none, can we do a roll call?
Christian,
Yes.
Jeske,
Yes.
Bowles,
Yes.
Oster,
Yes.
Souter,
Yes.
Whittington,
Yes.
Halliday,
Motion carries 6-0. Action item H, looking for a motion of support to approve Saxton Heavy Equipment quote for rear parking lot work in the amount of $14,000 of capital projects fund.
I'll make the motion.
I'll support.
Motion by Souter, supported by
Question on that.
Whittington.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm assuming that is the parking lot back behind the high school by the practice football field, is that,
It
The right
is,
area?
it is the one back by the loading dock.
over here?
In the rear where the cafeteria receives their deliveries.
Like the
it's-
board park, where we park for board meetings,
No,
No.
no, so
over at the elementary.
it's here, but behind this building where our well is, up in
Oh,
the woods.
okay,
So if you
okay.
go around, drive around behind the gym, through the student line,
Yes,
around
okay.
behind the gym. This area has been gathering water and just slowly busting up and eroding for the whole time I've been here.
I just want to make sure I knew where,
Yeah,
which one we're talking
it hasn't been high enough on the priority list to do anything about until I think I took Leanna and Kim back there because I was shocked this summer. Not many people work year round, but we just took a building tour to watch some of the construction. We were back there and, the water and the asphalt is busted up so much and so much sand and silt is there that water in that kind of pond area never makes it to the drain. So the area needs to be re-sloped, and the water had gotten within about 10 feet or 8 feet of the exterior gym wall. I'm like, we don't want a structural problem, so we don't want the water to begin to encroach and undermine that. So it's now time to, spend some money here to after talking to the contractor, they're gonna regrade the whole area. So they're gonna cut into that hill bank, and then when it rains, the water will come out. There is an existing drain, but right now, this area is low, and so they gotta build it up, cut the hill bank. So,
Anything else? Any other discussion or anything? Hearing none, let's do roll call vote.
Whittington,
Yes.
Jeske,
Yes.
Halliday, Bowles,
Yes.
Oster,
Yes.
Souter,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Okay, and lastly, we did move the one consent agenda item. I'm just gonna flip it over so I read the wording correctly. Action item I is a recommendation to hire Nikki Nagel, Flag Corps Advisor, in the amount of $349.06.
I'll make that motion.
I'm gonna give the motion to Christian, and I'll give the support to Whittington. Is that right? Is that you, Paula?
That's fine with me.
Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, can we do a roll call vote, please?
Christian,
Yes.
Jeske,
Yes.
Whittington,
Yes.
Bowles,
Yes.
Halliday, Oster,
No.
Souter.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-1. That brings us to discussion. Discussion A is first reading policies 2264, and 2266.
So the first, I'm scrolling down to it now, the first one, 2264, is your new Title I policy. When you look through this, you will see a lot of drafting notes, a lot of stuff that makes the length of this policy quite a bit longer than it really is. All of the drafting notes and the language of explanation come out of the policy once it's adopted. So for first reading, I went through here with our representative from Neola. We do have some check boxes where you check in green, those are the selected items. So as you go through this, there's some check boxes, there's some language we insert Houghton Lake to identify the district. Then there's a bunch of language and definitions. You see some pink stripe through. That is language that really is changing and being removed from the prior Title IX policy. So it's important to note as you're looking at these, 2266 is your existing Title IX policy. 2266 is still important. We're not replacing 2266 with 2264. We're adding 2264. And the reason is 2266 applies to any conduct that happened up until end of July. 2264 started August 1. And so if, let's say, you were to have a complainant come forward mid-September and say, last year, somebody did something and it was a action that would merit review under this policy, we would go back and use 2266, the one that is in force and still will be in force for any activities that happened prior to August 1. 2264 is the new one that will be in force for anything after August 1. This is also potentially going to change as we move forward, in that these have been rewritten. They were rewritten 4 years ago. They might be rewritten after January. And so we've seen the frustrating piece for school administrators and boards is we've seen through federal law reinterpretations or interpretations or changing interpretations of what certain language means under Title IX and Title VII. And so what my job is to bring it to you with the best legal recommendation under the current federal law, which is what you see here for 2264. So as we keep going through 2264, we're recognizing that this is currently in force. Federal law put this in play, which applies here in Michigan as of August 1. However, depending on how the presidential election might go and which Secretary of Education might be in office next, it could be reinterpreted again. So I've done this job long enough. I've watched this seesaw back and forth now, I think, 3 times, and it's infuriating because each time we spend a lot of money with lawyers and we rewrite language and we reinterpret things. But I also don't want to ever put the district in a position where we are exposed. So the whole point of the work for 2264, and I think the reason you see so many drafting notes, because it's a lot more than normal, is to provide that background and that explanation. The next body of the policy, like 10 pages, are definitions. And then there's more strike-throughs and things that get adjusted. The changes I highlighted in green, the attorney is advising. If you look back to the old policy, I was the district's Title IX coordinator under the old one. And so any complaint that were to come forward that happened before August 1, I would be the coordinator for it. What the attorneys are saying now is it should not be your superintendent. It should be somebody other than your superintendent, so that once that coordinator works with the investigator and the decision maker and they make a decision on whether or not this is actually a Title IX case, if there's an appeal, the appeal comes to the superintendent. But if the superintendent was the coordinator, I can't hear the appeal. And so you remove an appeal process and then the appeal goes to you all. And that's problematic because you haven't had the training. And so if we're trying to be nimble and we're trying to make sure that we're having that appropriate appeal process in place, this is why you see Lana Hartman and Robin as the recommended code coordinators. The reason we're doing that, a lot of districts are naming more than one, is you have one coordinator who would manage staff issues. You have another coordinator who would manage student issues. So if it's a student complaint, student conduct, or staff conduct, staff-student, we could potentially have both coordinators collaborating on an investigation if it involves a student and a staff. And so I, of course, will be working along with that, with Jeff, with Alicia as compliance officers, investigators. So the good news is we've done this work before. We have applied prior complaints under the prior policy. So it's not, the work isn't foreign, but some of the recommendations have changed. So that's a long way around me saying that's why you see a difference here in who the recommended coordinators are under 2264 versus 2266. I think over the last 4 months there have been webinars, trainings, legal meetings. Lawyers are enjoying this time. they are the only ones who are enjoying design. The rest of us are just working through it again. And so as we get further in the policy, you'll see a lot of dates, 5 days, 10 days, bi-weekly. So there's a bunch of dates that are deadlines by which the district staff must react in case there's a complaint. We have to file certain reports and do certain things on time. So really, as first reading, what you see here is straight from Neola's law firm and straight from our Neola coordinator. I have accepted every single, I read the whole thing. I have not found a recommendation that didn't work in my mind. Sometimes I do, and I've told you on other policies. This one, I can see being a functional policy that we would be ready to implement and ready to go as is. So that is in a nutshell 2264 first reading. And once we get down to 2266, if we're looking at that one under first reading, it is super easy. Really, the only changes are on that first page where they've added the sentence that says, this policy now is only applicable to conduct or alleged conduct that occurred on or before July 31, 2024. And then we also made a change in here, again, to keep the coordinators, to keep that theory going. We've thrown that edit option in there, so Leanna and Robin. But we've kept, if you go down to the next page, Jeff Goodwin and Alicia. So that is the only change in 2266. I know that was a ton of information. I tried to synthesize it kind of succinctly. Do you have any questions on either?
Well, I guess for me, so typically we do first reading, and the next meeting it would be on there to vote.
Second
as usual,
reading.
for the second reading and vote. You had mentioned already changing whoever's elected and whatever, but beyond that, right now, like I had mentioned before, there's 26 states that haven't accepted. It's in courts. It's at the Supreme Court level now, and with the overturning of the Chevron decision, this may not be a decision for the Department of Ed once it's all said and done. So do we kick that can down the road, so to speak, and wait until it's settled at the Supreme Court level so we're not doing this bouncing back and forth?
No, because then you're exposed. If there were a challenge that were to come forward and you didn't have an existing policy that complied with federal law, you would be, for whatever period of time that was, exposed for any staff to student, student to staff, staff to staff, or student to student conduct.
So all 26 of these states that have said, no, we're
they're
not going on, they're all
rolling,
exposed.
they're rolling the dice because they have the support of their state Supreme Court.
Would the previous policy be in place though?
No, not for conduct after July
After
31st. So the good news is, if a complaint comes forward for anything that happened last year or over the summer, no problem. That policy is really unchanged. The issue would be for a state, or not a state, a district or a board who said, we're just going to wait and see. The problem is from August 1 on, you're now out of compliance. Your own state Supreme Court won't support you, and you're writing a big check. You're putting yourself in a significantly disadvantaged position. You may be wondering, well, how often does this happen? Well, one of the key changes, if you get into the language between the two, I've been here almost 4 years. We've had probably 6 complaints in my time that were scrutinized under the old policy for a potential Title IX case. We were able to dismiss all 6, because that's part of the process. You have to go through and decide, is this or isn't this? We were able to dismiss all 6 because in part or in whole, the conduct occurred at night, off campus, on the weekend, at the beach, off campus. The language has been expanded to include now, under the new policy, conduct that doesn't happen at school. So here's an example. We start school September 5th, or 3rd, sorry. Jeff gets a call September 5th that this summer at Myrtle Beach there was, a group of our students and somebody did something to somebody. And now the victim is afraid to come to school and can make the claim under Title IX that conduct is material impacting their ability to get an education, and they're fearful, and there's a PPO that's in the criminal system. And guess what? Under the old policy, call the court, call your lawyer, call the cops, handle it. It's not a school issue. Under the new policy, it's our issue. And so then, we're on the hook for putting into place, after we do the investigation, putting into place protective measures. Failing to put into place protective measures creates immediately for the district and the administrators and board who will be sued, a situation that is called gross negligence. I am never going to expose Jeff, Alicia, or me, or you, to a gross negligence claim. So that's the risk you run. You know, under the old policy, that definition of where did it happen, on or off campus, is a pretty big one, you know? Because the chance of a serious sexual misconduct event taking place on campus is really low. It's not impossible, but it's low. The chance of that happening in someone's sleepover or at the lake or somewhere else off campus, much higher. Under the new policy, it potentially now is our issue. And that's where it really gets dicey. So I certainly don't want us to, you know, not have this in place.
Answer question. Okay. Anything else on the first reading of those policies? And again, we'll see them again next meeting, so. I am gonna ask for a little guidance from the board here because we do have to select a date for a board retreat. Do you want to do that now under discussion, even though it's not on there, or can we push that to board calendar? Does it really make a difference to anybody?
No, calendar.
Let's do calendar because it's not specifically under discussion.
Okay.
All right, we'll go but down to, it's before the amendment, number 10, which would be motion to approve closed session minutes as reviewed in closed session. Looking for a motion and support.
I'll make the motion.
Also. Motion by Christians, Jeske, can we do a roll call vote, please?
Whittington,
Yes.
Halliday, Oster,
Yes.
Bowles,
Yes.
Jeske,
Yes.
Christian,
Yes.
Souter,
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. All right, board calendar. We got one for student enrollment update. You can feel free to get your calendars out and let's take a look. So I believe based on the initial selected one was August 26th, and I've heard enough to say that that's not going to work. I do not want to make it next week, because that, to me, that's too short a notice for us. We already have 2 meetings in September, on the 9th and on the 23rd, if we wanted to do it a Monday. Weekends are hard for everybody. I'm not ignorant to that. They're hard for me. I don't like,
So the 23rd would technically be like a work session. Could we just use it as a work session as the workshop?
it's an option.
I'm in favor of using one of those dates that's already on the calendar for September.
You're saying the 23rd Monday?
Yeah.
Just
I mean,
make that
either
work
the 9th
session.
or the 23rd, whichever.
Yeah, I'd rather do that than the weekend.
Yes.
That sounds an awful lot like consensus, so let's plan for that. That was
23rd?
23rd. September 23rd will be work session / board retreat. And our topics, we're gonna stick to those top 5 that I did send out. We are gonna keep those. Thank you for your quick replies on that too. That was a good way to do it. I don't think it was the ideal way to pick a date. When it comes to doing that, we'll do it like this from here on out, but for topics, that was a good way to do it.
Do you know like what times? It's gonna take more than just a regular
I
start
do.
earlier than 6:30, or I don't know what everybody else's schedule looks like.
Do we want to start it an hour earlier? 5:30?
Yeah, the earliest I could push to is 5:30.
I'm in favor of that.
And it was 5:30. I just think otherwise we're gonna go really late if we're trying to.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Okay, let's do 5:30. If something comes up and you're running a little bit late or something like that, just let me know and
Okay.
we'll bring you in when the time comes.
Quick question, is Kim and I are working on that agenda. Do you want us to just throw down, you know, a general topic after we get through the regular action items, board retreat, or do you want us to list do you want to just keep a general board retreat or list the items that we're talking
I think since it's a work session meeting, why don't we just put we can just put it under discussion
Yeah,
and do each individual one on a line for discussion?
Perfect.
Let's do that.
so just list them, 1 through 5 under discussion.
Yeah, perfect. No particular order, dealer's choice on that one, so. Yeah, I think that'll be a good way to do it.
Good.
That way we can keep our schedule and not just upset the fruit basket too much. All right, well, that's everything I have. There's some upcoming